We have to do it better and faster and quicker than anyone else, or we simply would not survive.
I love racing, and I spent 6 years of it myself. I understand all about the hard way of, I called it in the old days, of sleeping on a creeper and eating bologna sandwiches and riding the back of the bus.
There was a real void because people were lacking grip and sliding around on the racetrack, and racers like to have a lot of grip.
Bob recognized that there could always be something better for the race next week. Bob was dedicated in building the most competitive racing tire possible. All he knew was work and effort. He wanted Hoosier Tires to be in the winner's circle every time there was a race.
You know, we started with very little, and we've come a long way.
He built a tremendous business. Not only are they the largest manufacturer of racing tires in the world, they're the most diverse manufacturer of tires.
Bob Newton, you know, with Hoosier Tire, really changed what short track racing is today, and his efforts that certainly made a big impact on my life and racing and what I raced on in my early years.
He was always looking to develop a better tire, a faster tire and a safer tire.
The thing about Bob is he always cared about the racers more than he cared about himself, and that's something that you know, there's a lot of companies that you see in these garage areas that don't think that way, and that's something that Bob always did.
Bob was a very honest, forward-thinking businessman who treated his employees and his customers probably better than he did himself. That was probably the key component to the success of Hoosier Racing Tire.
You got to have integrity and honesty, and you got to be humble to get away in life today. And don't hold a grudge. I don't dislike nobody.
He always put everyone else first. Bob probably never had a personal success. There were group successes.
Bob Newton, I don't even know where to start, and there's so much I can say about him. He's just a great guy. I've worked with Hoosier Racing Tire since I was 21 years old, and you know, they've been a sponsor of mine ever since.
When I was a young, struggling driver, they saw something in me and helped me out when I needed some breaks early in my career.
And the lasting impact that he has on racing, we will remember for many generations to come. And then you look at what he gave back to the community of Lakeville, small town in northern Indiana. That's where Bob lived. He owned a lot of farm ground around it. He developed that into Newton Park for particularly the young people of that community to appreciate and enjoy.
Bob Newton's plan to build a community baseball field for elementary school kids has turned into the kind of sports complex usually found in a big city.
People have been rather surprised as they come out to see the Gold Dome. You know, this is the closest one that you're going to get to Notre Dame.
Underneath the Golden Dome is the scoring tower for the park's 2 baseball and softball fields. Inside, you'll find the controls for an impressive sound system and electronic scoreboards for all 4 fields.
Newton Park is a phenomenal facility that I would doubt that many communities of that size have anything to match, and that's all because of the generosity of Bob.
Just want to leave something for this little town of Lakeville for kids, that's all. Of course, our business, you know, is racing, and we've been all over the country with that, but this is about kids. That's what it's all about.
And then right next to it was this old 2-story brick schoolhouse. It'd been closed, it was ready to be torn down. Bob bought it and remodeled it and gave it to the community as a community center.
The faces of Lakeville past mingle with tonight's crowd at the old Lakeville School Project. Less than 2 years ago, the building was a decrepit ghost of its former self, but owners Bob and Joyce Newton have poured money and heart into the project. Now the old school has a new life.
This whole thing started that we wanted to do something for the community, but we did not. In our wildest dreams, know it was going to get to this level.
He invested several $million back into his hometown. He certainly gave back to that community with everything he did, with his efforts and with his pocketbook. And to me, that's the real definition of character. Bob was an individual who always reached out to those around him. If you were at Hoosier Racing Tire, Bob always wanted to see you. He always wanted to know how you were doing, how are things going. He was genuinely interested in other people. The people who started with Bob and Joyce Newton and are still working there today, 20 or 30 years later, it's remarkable. And those employees at Hoosier Racing Tire consider themselves to be part of the Newton family. Bob motivated people by his energy. He was always traditionally the first one there in the morning. Matter of fact, they used to joke about nobody ever beats Bob to work. It created an atmosphere within the company that people wanted to be like Bob, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. And that dedication has permeated throughout the entire Hoosier Racing Tire company. You had an individual there who had a love for racing, a love for competition. He surrounded himself with good people. He reinvested in his business, very innovative, put the profit back into the business to create the best possible product. But most importantly, I will always think of Bob as a person who gave his success back to his community and to the people around him. The state of Indiana is extremely proud to have businesses like Hoosier Racing Tire and business people like Bob Newton.
I took advantage of opportunities, let me tell you. I mean, opportunities came along to me one after the other, and it was whether you take them or you pass them up.